Everybody, RJ Ochoa here from SB Nations, blogging theboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I trust that you are still pretty pissed off. It's Sunday, August the 17th, 2025. We are here to discuss winners and losers from Saturday night's Dallas Cowboys preseason game, which was an affair that left us all wanting more. It was not good. There were some things that I think you can define and constitute as winners, some positives to take away. We should qualify this discussion the way we've been having to qualify these discussions for the last 8 days now, which is it's only the preseason and you can freak out if you want. I think there's some legitimate room and reason to maybe not freak out, but have some elevated concerns, or you can just kind of, tuck this under the rug and say, no worry, no foul. It is only the preseason. I trust that everything's going to be okay when this team gets rocking and rolling in week one on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. And maybe you're somewhere in between. Maybe you feel like they're going to lose to the Eagles anyway because the Eagles are that good and the Cowboys always stink and they have this 30-year drought and all this type of stuff. But whatever the case may be, we're here to discuss winners and losers from Saturday's game against Baltimore. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I got all sorts of fun stuff coming out all the time for you here, discussing all things America's team. This week we'll, of course, have to get into the Netflix documentary that is dropping from this team that serves as the bane of our existence. But I won't lie to you. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to hear the stories I've heard a million different times and to be reminded of the drought that sort of serves and hangs over this team's head. But that's a conversation for a different day. Again, we're here to discuss winners and losers from Saturday's Dallas Cowboys game against the Baltimore Ravens. Let's go ahead and begin. First of all, for me, winner Jack Sanborn. I think that we have spent a lot of time in the last few months talking about different acquisitions the Cowboys made in different capacities, obviously. I think Joe Milton was the favorite for a lot of people. That has changed. We'll get there, certainly. I think Kaiir Elam has had his moment in the sun. That goes without saying. Obviously, George Pickens is kind of in his own category. He's definitely the favorite, but so understanding that he's in his own very special box, I think we kind of forgot about Jack Sanborn, and I think that this is a bit of a low-hanging fruit sort of acquisition from the Cowboys. Karam says, I liked Jack Sanborn, the guy from Wisconsin. That's right, he's a Badger. Whenever we see a defensive coordinator, arrive, or an offensive coordinator, whatever the case may be, a coordinator coming from someone else, we always kind of pay attention when they bring a player with them. If you recall, when the Cowboys hired Dan Quinn, he brought in Keanu Neal and DeMonte Kazee, and we obviously kept looking to former Falcons, and Dan Quinn took a lot of former Cowboys with him to Washington. And while those things didn't necessarily work out, it is a bit of low-hanging fruit to pluck. It's an easy dot to connect in terms of coaches or staffers bringing people who they worked with in the past. Andrew Whitecotton bringing Solomon Thomas from the New York Jets is another example of what's going on with the Cowboys right now. So Matt Eberflus only brought one Chicago Bear, obviously serving as the head coach there with him, and it is Jack Sanborn, and he looked awesome. I mean, he was incredible. Really, I think kind of proved that he has the potential to be somebody who can stand tall in the middle of the Cowboys defense, certainly until DeMarvion Overshown returns, although admittedly we don't know exactly when that will be. Now, similarly, I thought Shamar James, the rookie for the Cowboys, had a nice showing, a second nice showing in a row. Maris Liufau and Shamar really popped in the preseason game in Los Angeles, but Shamar James really proving, and again, there's an opportunity there for linebackers. I think that when training camp began, I had a lot of questions about the linebacker room overall. I don't really think I thought it had a high floor or a low floor, but it was just kind of, everywhere you looked on defense, like corner had some real playmakers, and obviously edge rusher has a ton of playmakers, but linebacker was, okay, Maris Liufau there, he's there, and Shamar James, cool, and is Jack Samborn going to be anything? Is Kenneth Murray going to be anything? It was just kind of a hodgepodge, like a spot show, if you will, of different linebacker options. But I would say through two preseason games, Shamar James has really, really, really popped. Shout out, of course, to the Florida Gators. It's a great day to be a Florida Gator. And that's wonderful to see. So getting some stable, legitimate linebacker play corroborates what we said. We said all along, if you have been following me or listening to me, then you know this. We have been saying that Matt Eberflus was going to have the magic touch when it came to linebackers on the Dallas Cowboys. This is what Matt Eberflus does. And through two preseason games, we have seen Maris Liufau pop. We've seen Shamar James pop. We've seen Jack Sanborn pop. among the things that I have the highest levels of trust and confidence in when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys defense or Dallas Cowboys team at large entering the 2025 regular season, it is the play of the group's linebackers. And the primary reason for that, with all due respect to the actual players on the field, is Matt Eberflus. He is that valuable. He has that much of a history at this exact position. And I think the early returns, granted, they are only in the preseason, corroborate that idea. So shout out to Matt Eberflus. But those are my first two winners. I've got Jack Samborn, Shamar James. My third winner, not a lot to really kind of get from, but this was not a game that you could really have a lot of winners from. So I kind of struggled, if I'm being honest with you. But I also write a stock report for bloggingtheboys.com following each and every single Dallas Cowboys game. I did have Tyler Booker as a stock up. Stock report's a similar kind of process to winners and losers. And I had Tyler Booker there, and I have Tyler Booker here because while Tyler Booker did not, like maul 100 dudes or anything like that during the team's preseason game on Saturday night, he looked the part. He stood tall, and I think that it was easy to kind of see the beginnings of why the Cowboys are in love, the beginnings of why the Cowboys are so excited. It was awesome to see Cooper Beebe in there, and that the Cowboys felt like it was necessary to have him play because Booker was going to play, and that's what we want, right? We believe in the future of this young offensive line, and having them grow and help one another is kind of the whole point of this whole thing. So serious kudos to Tyler Booker for getting involved, having a game under his belt. He was, as you recall, the only healthy first-round pick who did not play in week 1 of the preseason across the entire NFL. So that is no longer the case. It's awesome to see Tyler Booker, the plastic peeled off the iPhone, so to speak, and finally got his feet wet. And I am very excited. I have him as a winner because, again, he played football for the Dallas Cowboys, and that is a very cool thing. Those are 3 of my 5 winners, and we're reaching a little bit here. It was very difficult, if I'm being honest with you, to come up with some winners because Saturday was not that great. In fact, does anybody realize this? I had not realized this. By the way, Palmer's Angels says very cool shirt, big up. Shout out to Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. My parents got me this shirt, so shout out to my parents, and shout out to Palmer's Angels, obviously. But when it comes, we've got a trade going on in the NFL this exact moment here. Let's see. Let's put this up on screen. I had something else ready to share on screen. This doesn't happen often, but we have an actual trade happening in this exact moment, and it does somewhat impact the Dallas Cowboys. Sharing it to your screen right now. I'm trying to buy some time for myself, trying to vamp. Here we go. Here's the trade. The Houston Texans are sending John Mechie to the Philadelphia Eagles, per sources, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Not a great photo for me to zoom in on. It's a very tall photo. So the Eagles, if you recall last year around this time, traded for Jahan Dotson. Everybody thought that that was going to be a move that paid dividends. Not sure what the exact compensation is at this moment in time. But okay, interesting. John Mechie never really clicked for the Texans, obviously. Different, they've had different players have success. It is strange the Texans would give up. Obviously dealing with Tank Dell coming back from injury, and Nico Collins is amazing, but I really don't know what the what the Texans are thinking here. I'm waiting to see if there's a bit of information on compensation, but I'm not seeing anything yet. Why would the Texans do this? Especially, I'm imagining this is some sort of day 3 pick because it's Howie Roseman. I mean, I have no idea. Karam says Howie Roseman is a madman. Yeah, we've known this for some time, Karam. I mean, Howie Roseman and your Oklahoma City Thunder are the only ones who kind of understand this. What are the Texans doing? Why would they do this? Wow. Okay, I'll keep you updated if I see something on compensation, but that doesn't happen often that we get a chance to, talk about an active trade, and obviously involves the Cowboys because it's involving the Eagles, and that's so stupid. I have no idea what the Texans are doing. The Texans are stupid. Why would they do this? By the way, did anybody see? I'm a Houston Astros fan, and what is CJ Stroud doing wearing a Seattle Mariners cap? I think there was a legitimate reason for this, but it was all over the place. I couldn't help but see it a million different times. So whatever the answer for that is, that's what it is. Karam says, by the way, I'm fine with it because my Thunder won't stop getting better. Yeah, that's good for you, Karam. Nice. Still nothing on compensation. Okay, whatever. Let's get back to winners and losers. I had another thing that I was going to share with you in a moment. So shout out to the Texans for compromising today's live show. Wasn't totally ready for that. It did kind of catch me by surprise. Anyway, last individual winner for me, and pretty obvious, Andrew Booth, I thought was a winner for the Cowboys on Saturday night, had the pick six. And it's been, let's be honest here, it's been tough for Andrew Booth in his Cowboys career to this point. People have not exactly been patient with him. So very cool moment for him to get a pick six, kind of a juggling interception, but lots of effort, lots of heart. And, on the subject of John Mechie, I suppose, new Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, I mean, the Cowboys, the cornerback room on the Cowboys is kind of open for someone to take a spot. We have no idea what the situation is or is going to be with Trayvon Diggs still on PUP, with Savon Ravel still on NFI. I mean, it stands to reason that someone like Andrew Booth could certainly carve out a role early on in the season while the Cowboys are kind of figuring things out. And so you have to do something in the preseason to take a roster spot. You have to do something to prove to the coaching staff that you have to be there. You have to make a case for yourself to the point that somebody says, we can't finalize this 53-man roster without this person. And, having a pick six against the Baltimore Ravens is a very strong way to do that from Andrew Booth. So I thought he was maybe the biggest individual winner from Saturday's preseason game against Baltimore. No update on compensation. Come on, guys. We're trying to talk about this here, and you're just taking forever to let us know what's going on here. But my last winner isn't an individual, and then we're going to get to losers, where it is a much, much, much tougher scene. But overall edge depth. The Cowboys have a lot of edge rushers. Like, I don't think the Cowboys are in a position where they need to make a trade right now. Obviously, we're talking about the Eagles having traded for John Mechie, but the Cowboys have a lot of edge rushers. I mean, which is a good problem to have. And if you want to galaxy brain this, I suppose you could say that Micah Parsons not being on the field has offered them opportunities to work. But I mean, I feel like there are a number of dudes who we really like, and then you put Micah Parsons obviously at the top of it all, and it's difficult to not feel like that's the biggest strength on the team. They're going to have to have a strength. There's going to have to be something on the Cowboys that propels them forward, certainly defensively, and it feels like, what they have at edge rusher could be that thing. It feels like the Cowboys' overall depth at that specific position could be what helps them survive the battle of attrition that is an NFL season. So I think edge depth has really, really, really shined so far. If anything has shined. And so that is wonderful to see. But that's certainly what happens when you stock up second-round picks at the position, which is basically what the Cowboys have done for the last handful of years now. So those are my 5 winners. And we still don't have the compensation on John Mechie. But 5 losers. And I do have 5 losers, but before we get to them, I want to put this tweet from John Owning, Twitter thread from John Owning. The 49ers, according to Jordan Schultz, were trying to trade for John Mechie. That kind of has me concerned, right? Like if if those are the 2 teams who are in on this, stands to reason that it is going to work out well for the Eagles, which is very frustrating. But shout out to John Owning of PFF, great friend of the show. John is awesome, does a great job, covering the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys, but always has some wonderful threads and some nuggets of information. So let's kind of zoom through this. I did not have Damone Clark as a winner. And I wanted to include a note from John as to why. I've got that highlighted here for you. I see you, Dustin Roberts, saying, what up? Hope your day is going great, Dustin. So overall thoughts from John on Dallas's run defense, Matty Eberflus, et cetera, et cetera. But this was it. Damone Clark looks better, but a lot of the plays, and I trust John's eye when it comes to things like this more than I trust my own. He's an expert when it comes to these sorts of things. Damone Clark looks better, but a lot of the plays he made were a result of miscommunication or missed blocking assignments by Baltimore. So I don't want to take away, and I don't think John's trying to take away from what Damone Clark did. But I think that's why, to me, I think Jack Samborn really stood out. To me, I think that Shamar James really stood out. I'm willing to certainly trust John's eye again and note that, maybe Damone Clark was more of the benefit of Baltimore having their own issues on offense, which isn't a bad thing. You can only do what you can do. But on the subject of losers, now I know there is some discourse about this on the internet right now. This is John's note on Mazi Smith. Let's just read it verbatim here. Mazi Smith isn't doing it, had a couple good snaps, but he's too slow off the ball, gets too much ground, doesn't shed blocks well enough. Not a good performance versus backups. Here's the thing here. Now, I don't like doing this exercise and calling people winners and losers. So I don't mean this in an offensive way. I'm also just keeping an eye out on compensation. I think we might. Nope, still don't have it. Okay, whatever. Maybe Howie's getting it for nothing. But I don't like using the word loser. But I mean, if we're talking about who improved their status, who weakened their status, I think that's obvious. I'm trying to be as kind as possible. And yeah, like it is what it is here at this point for Mozzie Smith and the Cowboys. And I don't think like I have no negative words to say about Mozzie. He certainly seems to be trying hard. He certainly seems to be doing what he can. It's just not happening. And you're talking about now you're on year 3 as a first round pick. I mean, I feel like we're past the point of having to declare that the investment was a failure, right? Like that's understood at this point in time. And there is not a lot of precedent for the Cowboys moving on from players like this before the end of their rookie contract is over. The only time the Cowboys have done this in recent history was Taco Charlton, obviously. And then they moved on from him in the middle of his 3rd season. Taco was a first-round draft pick in 2017, and it was through the first few games of that 2019 season that Dallas moved on. He got picked up by Miami at a sack against Dak Prescott. Some of that I think was that there was some external chatter, right? Like the Taco like meme was really picking up. I don't think that's the case here. I think that if you're someone who's against Mozzie Smith or feels like he's not contributing, I mean, that's fair. Like there's more than enough football data to prove that the Cowboys are not getting what they need to get out of him. I'm completely with you, but there really is no, in my personal opinion, benefit to cutting him. Like the only benefit is that you would feel better, right? Because if you're frustrated, you're just like cut him, get rid of him, whatever. But like what depth do the Cowboys have at defensive tackle? Like that's I mean truly my question. And I'm not presenting this to you like, hey, I have this awesome argument here. I understand that this argument is what it is, but cutting him or moving on right now at this point in time is really just, you know, trying to feel something, right? And maybe you feel like that's worth it. Maybe you can make an argument in that respect. I'm not, you know, unwilling to listen to that idea or to tolerate that idea. I just don't see any real benefit. The situation is unfortunate. The situation remains unfortunate, and there you want to say things like there's nowhere to go but up and whatnot, but like when is the up going to happen? Like what is the positive turn this story takes? I really don't know, but right now I know that he's not a player who seems like the team is going to ultimately benefit from throughout the course of the 2025 season. So still no update on compensation. Normally these things take a while or don't take a while. So whatever it is. But up next for me, and then we're going to get to the 2 big ones. I thought that Will Greer was a loser in this game. And the reason for that is like, what a shocker here. I'm going to have Joe Milton as a loser, but if the Cowboys had to play a game right now without Dak Prescott, who should be their quarterback? I think a lot of you are going to say, Will Greer. And your answer is Will Greer because you don't think it should be Joe Milton. I'll tell you right now, it should be Joe Milton. All right. I fully understand how that sounds, but the reality is that Joe Milton possesses a level of athleticism that if you have to play a game without Dak Prescott, you're simply hoping to hit the lottery, right? Like you're simply hoping that his athleticism can win out. It can be enough, can be magical enough for one moment in time, for one game in question, right? And that being said, you know, Joe Milton has played very poorly, you know, through 2 preseason games. That goes without saying. But what did Will Greer do? And granted, he's had much more limited opportunities. He's had less talent, so to speak, to work with around him as the Cowboys have pulled players, whatever. He's also going up against, you know, more inferior talent or whatever in the Rams and the Ravens. And he looked okay against Los Angeles, but I mean, the bar was really low on Saturday when Joe Milton left this game. I think that's really fair to say. I think we all agree. I think we all understand. Like the bar was on the ground. All right. I tweeted at the moment in time that I'm talking about that I would have rather watched, and I stand by this, the final season of How I Met Your Mother than, you know, what we were watching from the Cowboys offense at that point in time. Cool. Okay, great. So Will Greer, come in and like basically have a pulse and you'll clear what we're watching at this moment in time. And that didn't even happen. Right? Like it wasn't hard for Will Greer to enter the game on Saturday against Baltimore when he did and impress us because of what we had been watching to that point. And he still didn't. In fact, he fumbled the ball away. I mean, so I don't think Will Greer's roster spot is in jeopardy. And again, that kind of goes back to the like, you should cut him, you should whatever. Like in today's NFL, it's stupid to not carry 3 quarterbacks. Like I think that both Will Greer and Joe Milton are very, very, very safe. I think they're 53-man roster locks. Again, because of the 3rd quarterback rule, the fact that you can dress somebody without them counting against your 46-man game day roster, like all that different stuff. but I mean, at this point, there's no way the Cowboys are making a move, to acquire a different player. Like, these are players who have been in their system, who they've been working with, who have not impressed. But that's really my point, is that Will Greer had a chance to really light the debate, I guess, right? Like, if Will Greer had come in and played moderately well, there would be people after the game on Saturday who were saying, like, okay, fine, carry Joe Milton, but Will Greer needs to be QB2. But I don't think he even made that argument. So in that sense, I have Will Greer as a loser. Rick Ursulini says, winners, Damone Clark, Tyler Booker, Shamar James, both best group linebacker and corner added. Jack Samborn, I know you arrived late, Rick, to the live show, but those were all winners for me as well, although we talked about Damone Clark and a little bit of context there. Losers, you've got Mozzie, Milton, Greer, Sanders, Vaughn. To get to the point, I don't have Miles Sanders specifically. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. Like, 7 carries for 15 yards when you're the starting running back. Deuce Vaughn, I mean, at this point, you're just like, we're just stating the obvious. Like, Deuce Vaughn, Mozzie Smith are in the same box for all of us, except Mozzie's a former first-round pick, so he's a little bit more protected from a roster standpoint. I think we all agree that Deuce Vaughn is not making this team. I think we agree that Will Greer is. I think we agree that Mozzie is, and some of that is just the nature of the positions they play and whatnot. But I think we also agree that, Miles Sanders has some work to do to make the team, especially with the way Phil Maffa has looked through limited action, but still impressive action nonetheless. The two biggest losers, this goes without saying, Joe Milton. I mean, we can only say the same thing so many times. He's raw. He needs time. This is that time. But this was a really bad game for Joe Milton. This was a really tough look, tough outing, and cool. You can throw it a million miles, dude, but like, you got to be able to do something with it. And that's the thing. Like, I just kind of chatting with people on the internet and whatnot, kind of reading and trying to, put together thoughts and whatever. Why isn't he running? Right? Like, that's kind of my question at this point. If you expect at some point, you are getting away from what Joe Milton really is, right? Like, at a certain point, you're actually hurting the process to not let him be who he is. Now, look, I understand that right now, there's a lot of criticism pointed at Joe Milton, but if his strength, if his comfortability is running, is getting mobile, is getting outside of the pocket, and Brian Schottenheimer has said some of this stuff, then okay, maybe, I don't know, let him do that, right? Like, there's no need. This is a popular expression, but there's no need to put a square peg in a round hole here. You don't need to force Joe Milton to be a pocket passer. You just lean into his strengths at this point. And maybe the Cowboys are trying to do that. Maybe it's still not working, but right now it's really difficult to find any element of what Joe Milton is doing and feel like y'all are headed north. And that's why, for me, ultimately, this all points back to Brian Schottenheimer, and I think he's the biggest loser as a result of this all. We've been talking about since the game ended how maybe some of our initial reactions when the Cowboys hired him were fair. Maybe we fell a little bit in love. Maybe we coped ourselves over the offseason, whatever. Those are dramatic things to say, and I don't think any of us legitimately feel that way. But I think it's fair to at least ask the question out loud. I think it's fair to say to ourselves, like, okay, well, what are you doing here? And now I think he said the right things to a degree following this game, and we had the live show going on, so we were discussing them in the moment. But he said that they were not going to say it's just a preseason game. I think that's the right thing to say in this moment. He said that they were not panicked, which, again, if you have to say that sentence on August the 16th, then maybe there's kind of a reason to panic, but, just my 2 cents. Ultimately, right now, nothing looks functional. Right now, nothing looks organized. Right now, we have walked into this house and everything is messy. It smells. The floor needs to be vacuumed. The windows need to be cleaned, right? Like, everything is disheveled. Everything is out of place. And we're looking at Brian Schottenheimer saying, like, well, dude, like, yeah, technically the landlord is, messing all this up and making life difficult for you. But, like, that's like the fact that the plumbing's broken is the landlord's problem. The fact that, the roof is caving in, that's something the landlord has to work on. Like, the mess inside right now, like the clothes on the ground, that's on you. Like, you're the head of this house. Like, you should have some of this more together than you do. I'm I am more than willing to acknowledge that Brian Schottenheimer isn't a Kobayashi Maru, that succeeding as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, particularly in the year 2025, is an impossible task. That can be true at the same time that it's true that right now he appears a bit overwhelmed. Right now, it appears as if things are not going according to plan. Right now, all of the things you talked about and the buzzwords and the catchphrases and the cool sayings and the occasional curse word, right now, those things are falling a little bit on deaf ears. We gave you some time, and I know it sounds unreasonable to say that the time we gave you was 2 preseason games, but we're simply at a place where we have to see some kind of results, some kind of measurable, tangible data in order to buy more of what you're selling. We're not asking for a lot, but you got to do something. You got to just get up off the ground and take one step forward, and we will sit here, stand up, and clap because, again, we're not asking for a lot, but you got to do that or else you're not really doing anything. Let's see here. Palmer's Angel says, Shoddy's looking shook. Kellen was the hire. I don't think so. I think the Cowboys are okay without Kellen Moore, but those are just my 2 cents. And my last loser before we get to a couple of things, and still no compensation. Goodness gracious. But this is basically saying Brian Schottenheimer again, but the Cowboys have played 2 preseason games. They've played a majority of preseason games, right? Because they're only 3. And even then the third one is fairly diluted because of the way their preseason works and whatnot. But that being said, the Cowboys have played 2 preseason games here. But I'm going to, well, hang on. Before this, let's get to Hen says, I don't really care about preseason. I got to tell you, the Eagles look just like our backups. Who cares? Just get healthy. I think that the Cowboys don't have that same benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying they have to look on fire in the preseason, but like they have to look organized. You know, people keep bringing up is that the quote that people keep bringing up is I've had people tell me lately that Brian Schottenheimer had brought up that the Cowboys are only using their 7-iron. Cool. That's great. I love this analogy. I'm a big golfer. No one is saying that you have to hit this 7-iron or play this 7-iron like Roy McAvoy in Tin Cup. Nobody has those unreasonable expectations. What we expect you to do with your 7-iron, if that's the only club you're going to play with out of the bag, is you got to put the ball in the fairway. You got to get on the green in regulation. You got to chip moderately. You got to 2-putt, right? Like, none of those things are happening. The Cowboys are shanking and duffing and topping this left, right, and nowhere near center. They are all over the place. They're in the sand. They're whiffing. I mean, so sure, play their whole round with the 7-iron, but look like a golfer, right? Like, look like you've played this game before. And so that's where you lose me with this 7-iron, you know, analogy and methodology. The 7-iron isn't the problem here. It's the swing. It's the mechanics. It's everything that kind of surrounds the 7-iron being a part of the overall operation. And again, I think that the Cowboys have played 2 preseason games now, and I don't feel like I've learned anything about them. And I'm not being critical about them because RJ Ochoa hasn't learned anything. But I'll ask you, what have you learned? You have watched the same 2 preseason games that I have, and have you learned anything? Do you feel like you have a better grip on something? Do you feel like you have more confidence or even less confidence? Because you could have learned something from a negative slant, and maybe that's your answer to this question. But the fact that the Cowboys have played 2 preseason games and we have not had a full and proper ability to evaluate what they are doing, and a lot of that is obviously the Joe Milton of it all, that is concerning. And again, look, practices are happening, training camp is happening, the coaching staff and everybody involved, obviously on a serious level, is able to evaluate and assess and analyze all these things. But I maintain that they have played 2 preseason games, and it just kind of feels like they just, like, you know, had cardio work, right? Like, it feels like we didn't really learn anything. It feels like, you know, we got 60 minutes to do this test and we just sat there. We didn't even pick our pencils up or, like, you know, start filling out the Scantron, if that's even a thing nowadays. But I digress. Back to the comment section. Comp is in from Palmer's Angels. I don't see the comp for the John Mechie trade. Let's see here. Oh, Harrison Bryant. So it's a straight up, and day 3 picks. This is Jordan Schultz. Okay. Interesting, complicated kind of trade. Excuse me. Hen says, just don't hit the water. That's basically what it is. Calvin says they're playing with a freaking lob wedge. Yeah, like, and look, if you want to go play 18 holes with a lob wedge, fine. Like, I really don't care. And I understand the analogy, the 7-iron analogy, the lob wedge analogy. That's fine. But look like you know how to hit a lob wedge. Like, we're not saying that the fact that your 7-iron isn't traveling as far as your driver is an issue. That's in no way what we're saying. What we're saying is you're telling us that you are only using a 7-iron, and right now you look like you have no idea what this club is for. Right now, you know, like, you should hit this thing pretty well, especially if this is the only club you're going to hit. Like, you would think, okay, fine, you're going to play with your 7-iron, great. First hole, maybe it's kind of weird, maybe it's kind of random, right? Like, I know we're getting really deep into this analogy, but by like the back 9, you should look like you understand the 7-iron fairly well, because it's the only club that you've been hitting so far. And right now the Cowboys are holding this thing and they're like, dude, I don't know. I mean, I really have no idea what this thing does. That's kind of how we feel about what you're doing right now. So those are my winners and my losers. I did want to get to 2 things before we got out of here. And the first I touched on in the post-game show, but I have the clip for you now. Jerry Jones had a very weird thing to say before the game. So the context behind this, in case you're unaware, preseason broadcast rules are different. And Jerry Jones sits down with the Dallas Cowboys pregame show. By the way, Alex says, play the round with a 7-iron. Just don't show up in hockey goalie gear to play golf. That's another great way to put it. Well said, Alex. But so in preseason games, during the pregame, Jerry Jones does an interview with the hosts in question. This is, again, the way pregame broadcasts work in the NFL. So he sat down with Kyle Yeomans, Mickey Spagnuolo. They're talking shop, talking about this, that, and the third. And obviously the subject of the Netflix special comes up because it's premiering on Tuesday. But at the end, as Kyle Yeomans was kind of throwing out of the interview, throwing a commercial and whatnot, Jerry, politely cut him off and intervened, and said, I just want to say, whatever, and I'm going to play you the clip because it was kind of random how Jerry did this. Let's just watch it.
Good luck this afternoon, and we'll see you again next week as well.
I'm thankful. I interrupt you, but I'm so thankful for you that are watching out there. And I realize that we really need to win more games than we've won last year. And we need to get in that tournament, and we need to do well into that tournament. That's fresh hard on my mind.
I like it, and I think everybody watching at home can agree with that.
I have no idea what this was. It was very strange and very, again, I'll use the word sentimental from Jerry. I don't know that I really buy it that way. And I think if I have to connect it to anything, I said this in the postgame show, that it was probably in relation to Jerry saying that if there's no drama, he'll stir some up around the Cowboys at the Netflix premiere last week. But that was just kind of weird. But I think it's important to have the context, and that was the clip in question. Last thing, this is also a loser. I don't like to take shots at people who are trying hard to do their jobs, because sometimes we all make mistakes. But holy crap! In case anybody hasn't seen this, it is a tough look. I mentioned the pregame, or excuse me, I keep doing that. Preseason broadcasts are different than regular season in the NFL. And the Denver Broncos broadcast on Saturday had a moment. Someone put a Micah Parsons quote in front of them that they thought was real, and it wasn't. And this is what happened.
Carter out to the 36-yard line. Cynthia Freeland down on the field.
So maybe this guy Micah Parsons in a contract that also has some question marks, let's call it that. Look, his pressure percentage last year, 19.1% per next gen stat. It was the best in the National Football League despite missing games. So wherever he lands, whatever happens, maybe Micah Parsons would be, a lot of fun to hang out with.
There's no doubt about that.
He'd be fun to hang out with. And everybody gave Sean Payton some grief for saying he wants to win a Super Bowl. How about this? You got one of the best defensive ends saying Broncos have a real chance at the Super Bowl. So don't get mad at him too.
Wow.
This is now something we've heard echoed though from Drake Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. They said, I wanted to come here because of the defense and because Bo Nix. They had a young
and the head coach and the ownership. They're all rolling together now.
When you have a great ownership group that lets you do the things to win championships, re-sign key players, and bring in marquee additions, you have a real shot. And getting over that hump, getting over that Chiefs hump in the season, and getting that first playoff berth. Oh, by the way, Michael Parsons, no playoff games.
And everything becomes a bigger deal when the Dallas Cowboys are involved, and Jerry Jones and company there.
Offense number 71.
Yeah, that was, look, we've all made mistakes in life. And I've made mistakes. I've made mistakes on camera. I've gotten information wrong. It will happen to me again. You'll make a mistake. Actually, you won't. I know you won't, but I will make a mistake again. Like, we've all been there. We've all flubbed. This was a tough scene. This was a tough look. And the thing about the Micah quote that they thought was real, I mean, like beyond, like, I know that we're all saying like, oh no, this was obviously fake. Like, even if we weren't biased, even if we weren't Cowboys biased, I think I like, if this quote existed in the same way, but it was like, I don't know, if it was like Trey Hendrickson talking about, the Cowboys, if I read that exact quote, but again, modifying it for the names, there's no way I would believe it was real. It was so obviously fake. It seemed like, if anybody has ever, I assume a lot of you have, but if you've played Madden, you know how they have like the tweets or the posts or the whatever, like the quotes from the players. Like, it looked like that. Like, it looked so obviously fake. I have no idea how anybody could have ever believed that this. And the other thing is, if Micah Parsons had truly said this, right? If he had actually said this, and if you were someone involved in the curation of this quote, wouldn't you tell yourself like, man, I feel like we would have heard about this, right? Like, I feel like it would have been a much bigger deal, right? Like, I don't think we'd be the only people talking about this if he actually said this. So it's kind of strange and kind of funny. But those are my winners and losers from Saturday's preseason game for the Dallas Cowboys. Did not go as well as we wanted it to. That's okay. We'll see what the team says. And I think, to kind of close, we are angry and we're frustrated, and a lot of that is not the fault of the current group, but we definitely don't want to hear things like it's just a preseason or it's going to be okay or whatever. Like, I'm very interested to kind of, hear some response to this, because there has to be a little bit more call to action than just some kind of talk at this point. Luis says in the chat, that quote, I think you're talking about Jerry's quote about how I'll stir up drama if there isn't anything going on. Confirmed to me that Jerry's goal is to make money, winning a secondary, as long as the Cowboys are getting some shine. I agree with you, and I think that's why Jerry said what he did. The little like, oh, this is fresh and hard on my mind or whatever, like, that was strange. It's a strange time. It's always strange, but again, the Netflix thing finally comes out this week, and like, this is the last thing I'm going to say to you, because I'll have a video on Monday, but the Netflix thing is going to drop on Tuesday, and I should talk to you, because you're definitely going to watch the Monday video. Like the video, subscribe, please. Follow me on social. But if I don't talk to you between now and the time you watch the first episode of the Netflix special, that thing is going to like get stupid annoying. All right. The reaction to it is going to get stupid annoying on the internet. We are going to see some revisionist takes like you've never seen this coming week. Like on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, we are going to see a whole hell of a lot of the Cowboys need to do it like this. They haven't been good because this. Look at this. Look at you're going to see the same clips floating around on TikTok. People saying like, this is what the Cowboys are like, and this is what they need. This is the real leadership, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not here. I in no way want to cast dispersions on the 90s teams that we all hold very near and dear to our hearts. But do not get got by those silly traps. Do not fall into them. You're smarter than that. Just let the people make the noise they're going to make. It's just going to be, we're going to have to weather it together, all of us. Calvin, by the way, says, sign Micah on Tuesday, my dream. Why not Monday, Calvin? Why wait till Tuesday? Although, like, to Calvin's point, a lot of people have said, I really hate when people present like a really popular idea and act like it's a unique thought. That's a really big pet peeve of mine. And so we've seen a lot of people say things like, I'm telling y'all, I'm telling you, I've been saying that the Cowboys are using this Micah thing as PR for the Netflix documentary. Yeah, we know. Literally everyone thinks this. You are not unique. We all think the same thing. All right. Now, whether you think it's a unique theory or not, the ultimate reality is that the documentary finally comes out this week. So if a Micah deal happens, all those people will be able to say, I told you, bro. I told you. I called it. I was saying you're right, my man. But anyway, if we don't get if we don't get the negotiation and the contract this week, the extension this week, it will invite a little bit more of, okay, maybe they're just this dumb. Maybe they're this toxic. I don't know. But we'll see. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. It was great chatting with you all. Shout out to the winners and shout out to the losers as well. Whoever you are watching from wherever you are, I know that you are a winner. My name, in case you did not know, in case you forgot, is RJ Ochoa. Please hang out with me on the internet wherever you get Dallas Cowboys content. It's the best time of year, even if we hate this team. I promise we're going to make it through it together. Barut, by the way, says, I hate this same thing RJ makes me. Yeah, like I'll be honest with you, Barut. I kind of don't like the Detroit Lions because so many people for the last 2 years have been saying things like, I really think the Lions are going to win the NFC North. I know we all think this. Like that's so. I kind of hate them because of the people who do that. But that's a me problem. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out, and I hope you have a great day. And we will see you next time.